Alright, thank you everyone for listening to my presentation. I'm Raid, and I'm a PhD student from the University of British Columbia. Today I'm going to talk about our recent work on decentralized finance security. It is called POMA Buster. In this work, we detect price oracle manipulation attack in DeFi. And this work is in collaboration with my advisor Kartik and David. Over the past few years, we have witnessed quite a few up and downs of the decentralized finance, or DeFi. The market capacity of Ethereum is a good indicator to the DeFi market as a whole. The total market capacity reached more than 500 billion US dollar at its peak around the end of 2021. However, the attacks against DeFi pose a consistent threat to this market even during the downtime. The loss can go up to 700 million US dollar in one single month. Looking deeper into the attacks, we find that the attackers target every single aspect of the blockchain, from the fundamental blockchain network layer all the way up to the application layer. This is no surprise because of the high financial incentive, like 700 billions per month, right? In this work, we are focusing on the application layer's attacks. The application layer attacks focus on exploiting the business logic flaws between blockchain applications. According to a survey paper on the DeFi attacks, the application layer attack constitute more than one-third of the total attack happened in 2022. In particular, the price oracle manipulation attack is the most infamous form of application layer attacks, taking more than 15% of the total attacks that happens in 2022. So, what does typical price oracle manipulation attack, or POMA, look like? Recall that I mentioned this attack usually involved many blockchain applications. So, if we want to start from a minimal example, I can show only two apps. One is the Oracle, or we call it bank, where the user can deposit their money into the bank. The other is DeFi app, where user can simply buy shares from the DeFi app. The interaction between the Oracle and the DeFi app is like a consumer-provider software pattern. The Oracle provides a share price based on the total supply of US dollar and the total number of shares. The DeFi app will consume the price feed from the Oracle and charge the user who buys the share. A successful POMA must include three stages. At the first stage, the attacker needs to buy something. The attacker first buys hypothetically 100 shares from the DeFi app with a unit price at 1,000 US dollar per share. The total payment should be 100 times 1,000, which will be like 100k. Here, the Oracle provides the price feed to the DeFi app. The second stage is manipulation. The attacker manipulates the price oracle by depositing 1 million US dollar to the bank, which pumped the price of the share from 1k US dollar to 1.5k US dollar per share. Finally, the third stage is selling and arbitrage. The attacker sells the 100 share back to the DeFi app. Because the price has been updated at stage 2, the DeFi app will use the manipulated price, which is 1.5k US dollar per share, as the sell price. So, the attacker will get 150k US dollar as its return. Comparing the investment and return, we can find the attacker made a 50k attacker profit, and the DeFi app suffered from a loss at the same amount. One may ask, well, does it mean I need to have at least 1 million US dollar to launch such an attack? Well, the answer is no. Because there's a feature called fresh loan in DeFi market, which essentially lends you a large amount of money without any collateral, as long as you can repay them within the same transaction, so that you don't need to have a lot of money to launch such attack. This is a problem. This is a big problem, as it basically put every DeFi app under threat. We need to stop them. Well, before we ever try to stop them, we need to answer the question first. How do we detect POMA, price oracle manipulations? In previous work, who calls DeFi Ranger, provided a pattern-based solutions. A simplified version of DeFi Ranger's solution is like this. If one transaction have 3 stages, buy, deposit, and sell from the same attacker, then the transaction is classified as a POMA. However, this is far from sufficient. There will be many ways to evade the pattern-based detection method. Let's say, if the attacker set up 2 addresses. Well, by the way, address means account here. In blockchain, you can create as many accounts as you want. The attacker can simply use address 1 to buy and sell the stock, the share, while use addresses 2 to manipulate the price. In this case, because address 1 is different from address 2, the pattern will not capture this transaction as POMA. Also, even simply separate the tag transactions into several individual transactions evade the detection as well. In this case, one transaction only contains 1 interaction, so none of the separated transactions fit into the pattern, so the pattern-based method failed for a second time. To this end, we can conclude the challenge to POMA detection as follows. The attackers will have many addresses, split the attack into multiple transactions, and last but not least, the ever-evolving DeFi app interaction, creating new stuff and eventually make the patterns outdated. In our run example, we use buy and sell as the interaction. However, there are tons of interactions in the wild of the DeFi market, like adding and removing the liquidity, lending and borrowing, etc. and etc. Patterns need to get updated every time when there's a new interaction was created. That's not what we want. So, a pattern-based method doesn't work reliably with the rapid advance of the DeFi market right now. So, our intuition here is to take one step back and find if there's any common characteristic to POMA, regardless of the DeFi interaction that falls behind them. More ideally, we would like to find some first principle rules to capture the POMAs. We put our eye on the stage 2 in the example, which is the manipulation stage. In this stage, we find that there's a large amount of money get involved into the oracle. And this is the anomaly that gives us a hint. In the traditional stock market, such an abnormal behavior is not allowed. Otherwise, you are manipulating the stock market. The stock market manipulation and the DeFi market manipulation are so similar that we can easily adopt the stock market knowledge to our case, which is in the DeFi market. We conclude 2 behavior that can effectively manipulate the DeFi market based on the regulations from US Securities and Exchange Commission, which is the US SEC. The first behavior is market domination. It means that if the trading volume of the attacker has dominated the market, let's say $1 million, he can manipulate the price easily. The second behavior is wash trading. It basically involves hundreds of small transactions, but eventually accumulates to a significant amount, like somewhere close to that $1 million. Unfortunately, regulations are usually not as clear as a math equation, so we have to translate them into some formal math representation. Here is one of the definition on the market domination, but If you'd like to see the details, I encourage you to read our full paper. But here I just want to give you a sense of how we quantitatively determine market domination in DeFi. It basically means that if the trading volume of a given transaction exceeds some percentage of the total supplied, we mark the transaction as a market domination. Going back to our run example, if the total supply of US dollar is 1 billion in the market, and we set the total supplied percentage to be 0.1%, then if the deposit is exceeding 1 million US dollar in stage 2, then the deposit transaction is deemed as a market domination, hence a market manipulation. After we detect the manipulation, our second question will be, how do we find the connection between the manipulation and the arbitrage? Given that there are more than 1 million transactions going through the Ethereum every day, it is too time-consuming and expensive to track all the transactions. And the attacker will use fake addresses, which make the searching even harder, because we cannot simply group the transaction by the addresses and detect them case by case. To make our research more efficient, we have two observations here. Our first observation is that the attacker tend to manipulate high-value cryptocurrencies. That's pretty intuitive because high-value cryptocurrencies are more popular so that the attacker can gain more profit from attacking them. To this end, we're safe to include only high-value cryptocurrency in our detection and get rid of those having zero value or super low value. Our second observation is that the attacker usually arbitrage quickly after they manipulated the price. This is an interesting observation because there are always third-party arbitrageurs who also competing for the arbitrage opportunity with the attackers. If the attacker failed to seize the arbitrage opportunity, first, they will lose their arbitrage opportunity forever because the third party will just come in. So, we can simply looking at the arbitrage transaction which are super close to the manipulated transaction, and so that we don't have to monitor the whole day's transaction and keep a short time window instead. Here's a quick recap to our challenge and solutions. First, finding the manipulation transaction is hard, so that we develop the first principle rules to capture them. And second, searching through all transactions is a time-consuming task, so that we focused on high-value cryptos only with a short time window to make it more efficient. To further validate our solution, we implement POMA busters and do quite a few experiments. We have two datasets in our experiment setup. First is transaction dataset. In this dataset, we have more than 800 million transaction log from the past 2.5 years. Secondly, we have the code arena dataset. The code arena dataset is much smaller, but it contains high-quality, human-labeled unique POMAs by third-party auditors recruited by Code Arena. We implement both POMA busters and DeFi Ranger in Python. Since DeFi Ranger does not release their code, we implement it with our best effort. We first focus on how many POMA detected and how fast POMA buster can do it. POMA buster detects more than 16,000 POMAs in the wild, which is 3 times more than what DeFi Ranger can do. Also, POMA buster is taking 20% less time compared with the DeFi Ranger. We also look into the false positive. We start from the 800 million transaction dataset and let both two to find POMA from them. POMA Buster finds 16K and DeFi Ranger find 4Ks as I shown in the bar chart just now. We apply After the detection, we apply the same sampling strategy on both sets of POMA detected. For the POMA Buster, we sampled 835 POMAs and then we make it to validation. While for DeFi Ranger, we have 294. To validate the POMA, we employed a 2.5% price deviation because this is a commonly used price deviation in DeFi. Based on this ground truth, we didn't find any false positive within the 835 POMAs detected by POMA Buster, but for DeFi Ranger, there are more than 20% false positive. For the false negative, our experiment is simpler. We feed the 27 label POMA to both tools, POMA Busters and DeFi Rangers. It turns out that DeFi Ranger can only detect 7 POMAs out of the total 27 ground truth, marking its false positive rate at more than 70%. While for POMA Buster, it successfully captured all the 27 POMA in the dataset, so it effectively has 0 false negative. Aside from all the statistics, we have some interesting findings, some interesting numbers to share as well. First, we witnessed a 77 billion US dollar potential profit gained by the POMA operators over the past 2.5 years. However, we cannot determine whether the profit is all collected by the attacker or not. Because, as I mentioned, there may be third-party arbitrager who also monitoring the opportunity, and POMA Buster cannot effectively distinguish the actual attacker from the benign third-party arbitragers. Our second finding is that the operators use their addresses quite actively. More than 95% of the addresses has more than 5 transaction history, and only less than 2% of the addresses are involving in a coin mixer like Tornado Cash. Like typical attackers can use Tornado Cash to mix their coins so that the regulatory or the police cannot trace them through their transaction record. But the POMA operator, they do not do this, and only 2% of them are doing this. So this observation actually opens a possibility for us to trace their real identity behind their address or fake addresses. Well, we have such promising POMA Buster tool right now, but the question is, where can we use it? How it can contribute to the DeFi market? POMA Buster is a pretty efficient tool that allowed its users to monitor committed transactions at a real time and flag potential POMA transactions. And hence, it could be utilized by regulatory agency like US SEC, who wants to regulate DeFi market and cryptocurrency like a stock. Pushing it one step further, POMA Buster can also be directly deployed to the blockchain nodes to prevent POMA transaction being committed to the blockchain network. Alright, let me conclude the presentation with the takeaways. So we have 3 takeaways here. First, our POMA Buster can detect 16K POMA, which have a potential profit of 77 billion US dollar for the past two years and a half. With the help of our first principle rules and optimization, POMA Buster reaches both high accuracy and high efficiency. Also, POMA Buster has 0 false positive and 0 false negative based on our experiment result. By using POMA Busters, regulatory agency and blockchain nodes can detect POMAs and prevent them from being included to the blockchain. Taking them as a whole, I hope our work can create a more secure blockchain ecosystem with less attack. That's it. If you want to know more about the detail of Puma Busters or the paper, please feel free to reach out via my email address over here or just read our paper. And the code is available over this QR code as well. Thank you very much.